Welcome to the Lowcountry Food Bank Safe Sampling Training. Through this training, you will learn why you conduct a recipe sampling, how to select a recipe for your sampling event, how to keep the food and your clients safe throughout the preparation and sampling, and how to set up and serve a safe and inviting recipe sample. We look forward to hearing all of the incredible stories from your future samplings. So why do you do a recipe sampling? We want to help clients understand how to use food items found in your pantry. People living on a limited budget do not want to take the risk of trying a new recipe or new food for fear of wasting their limited ingredients or budget. Providing a recipe sampling will help clients try something new, experience a new cooking technique, or learn a new way of preparing a familiar item without the risk of waste. To get started, let's discuss selecting a recipe. There are a few simple guidelines to help keep in mind when selecting a recipe to ensure you share recipes that your clients can easily prepare without running into barriers such as cost or equipment. First, you want to pick a recipe that uses 9 ingredients or less. At least one ingredient should be an item available in your pantry. The rest of the ingredients should be common ingredients that clients would have on hand or could purchase for a low cost. The recipe should be simple to prepare, only requiring the use of one electrical appliance. It should be written in simplified terms so it is easy to follow, and the recipe should utilize healthy cooking methods, such as baking or sautéing. Should use oil in place of butter or lard, limit added sugars and salt, and of course, should be tasty. We recommend avoiding recipes that utilize raw animal proteins, as the risk for contamination is too high. Instead, use shelf-stable protein like tuna, salmon, chicken, and beans to keep you and your clients safe. The other thing to factor into recipe selection is where will you be serving this recipe? If you will be serving it outside in the heat, make sure that you avoid items that could potentially become unsafe in the heat, such as dairy products and meats. Once you have your recipe selected, put together a plan for preparation and serving. Decide where you will prepare the recipe, who will prepare it, when will you get the ingredients for the recipe, and what you need to hold and serve the recipe safely. With your plan laid out and the recipe selected, it's time to talk safety. The most common ways food becomes unsafe are poor personal hygiene, cross-contamination, and temperature abuse. Let's start with your first line of defense, you. You should always have clean clothes, a clean apron, your hair pulled back away from your face, and covered with a hat, and that does include long facial hair. Next step is to clean your hands. To clean your hands, you need to make sure you wash your hands before you get started and then any time you change a task. That includes reaching into the refrigerator to grab a new food item to prep, taking a drink of water, cleaning dishes or your workstation, and doing anything that will potentially contaminate your hands. Remember, proper hand washing means using warm running water, applying soap to your hands, and scrubbing the soap into your hands for at least 20 seconds before rinsing your hands. Using a single-use paper towel, dry your hands, and then use the same paper towel to turn off the sink. Avoid using a hand towel to dry your hands as you can't guarantee it is clean. Once you have clean hands, we recommend wearing gloves. You're working with a vulnerable population and gloves are an extra line of defense. The same rule applies to glove usage as with your hands. Anytime you change a task, wash your hands and change your gloves. When you serve the recipe sample, wash your hands before serving, and again, anytime you change a task. If you are serving in an area in which a wash sink is not convenient, you can use hand sanitizer to keep your hands sanitized during distribution. The second line of defense is avoiding cross-contamination. Cross-contamination is the transfer of bacteria from one food type to another. An example is prepping meat on a cutting board and then prepping vegetables on the same cutting board. The bacteria on the meat could cause the vegetables to become unsafe, especially if you are not going to cook those vegetables. To avoid this, make sure that you prep all like items. All fruit, all vegetables, all dairy need to be prepared separately before moving on to another food type. Once you finish prepping one food type, clean your workspace and begin prepping your next food. Cross-contamination can also happen in the refrigerator. Make sure to store prepared foods covered and towards the top of the refrigerator so they are less likely to become contaminated by other foods. Raw meats, fish, chicken, and eggs should go at the bottom of the refrigerator as they are most likely to contaminate other food items. The final line of defense is temperature control. You need to make sure you properly heat and cool the sample. When you're sampling, keep hot foods hot and cold foods cold. The key here is to keep foods out of the temperature danger zone. The danger zone is the temperature range in which bacteria grows and thrives. The zone is 41 degrees Fahrenheit to 135 degrees Fahrenheit. So cold foods need to stay below 41 degrees and hot foods need to be cooked and held above 135 degrees Fahrenheit. Vegetable and grain-based dishes simply need to be cooked to at least 135 degrees to ensure safety. There are very specific temperature guidelines when preparing raw meat. So again, we recommend avoiding recipes that use raw meat as there is a higher chance you can make someone sick by not cooking it properly. When you are cooling hot foods for storage, you want to get them cooled below 41 degrees Fahrenheit as quickly as possible. If you prepare a large quantity of food, make sure to divide it into smaller, shallow containers so it will cool faster. When reheating a sample to serve, you need to reheat that item to 165 degrees Fahrenheit to make sure it is safe to serve. Now for temperature guidelines when sampling your recipe, cold foods can be served without temperature control for 4 hours. After 4 hours, the item needs to go back to the refrigerator or be thrown out. We do recommend placing the serving dish or platter that holds the cold sample in a larger container filled with ice, as it will keep your item cold and the sample will be more appetizing. Hot foods can be served for 2 hours without temperature control. After 2 hours, they need to be reheated to 165 degrees Fahrenheit or thrown out. For clients to fully experience a hot recipe, we recommend using an electric skillet, crock pot, or hot plate to keep the food hot while sampling, but this is not required. Again, without temperature control, cold foods can be served for 4 hours and hot foods for 2 hours. Preparing your recipe. Before prepping your recipe, clean and sanitize your workspace with Kitchen Safe sanitizer. Collect your cooking tools. And the food items you'll be preparing. Follow the instructions to prepare your recipe, remembering to prepare like items together. Change gloves and wash your hands anytime you change a task, and cook and cool to proper temperatures. Follow the instructions to prepare your recipe, remembering to prepare like items together. Change gloves and wash your hands anytime you change a task, and cook and cool to proper temperatures. Store your sample safely away until you are ready to serve. Let's talk setting up your sampling. You want to set up your sampling station to be welcoming and to show your clients what ingredients you are using. What you will need is a sign with the name of your recipe sample or the key ingredients you are showcasing, printed recipes available for clients to take, a display of the ingredients you used to make the recipe, gloves, hand sanitizer, a utensil to serve the sample, small cups or plates to serve the sample in, small spoons, forks, or toothpicks for the clients to pick up the sample, napkins, a serving tray if you plan on walking the samples around to the clients as they wait, your serving dish or appliance, a receptacle to collect trash in. Plan your setup time accordingly. Only remove the cold sample from the fridge just before sampling, or plan enough time to heat your sample if you're serving it hot. Remember, you have 4 hours to serve a cold sample and 2 hours for a hot sample. Before you begin serving, wash your hands thoroughly, put on gloves, and remember to change your gloves and sanitize your hands throughout the sampling event. If you anticipate having a line of people waiting to be served, prepare a tray full of samples. If you have clients that come through slowly, only prepare a few samples at a time. When serving the sample to the client, you only have their attention for a short time, so pick 1 or 2 things to share with them, hand them the recipe and the sample, and share a simple nutrition tip or cooking tip. If you have time, engage in a more detailed conversation. Once you're done sampling, throw away any leftovers if they're past the safe time limit, clean and sanitize your workspace, and put back all of your sampling supplies so you have them ready for your next sampling event. Take some time to reflect on how the sampling went so you can set goals or plan to improve your setup for next time. Each time you conduct a sampling is an opportunity to improve your client's selection and preparation of food. The work you do is so very important to your community. Thank you for working with us to keep your clients safe and to empower your community. Have fun sampling!